Okay, you're all very welcome. My name is Kevin Rudden. I am CEO of Garland Consulting Engineers. I'm chairman of Pivotal International, and more importantly, I'm on the board of CitA. So it's a pleasure to chair today's session as part of the Intleacht Series 2026. It's a six-part program designed to support the responsible and practical adoption of artificial intelligence across the construction and built environment sector. What makes the series particularly valuable is its use case driven approach. It's not all about theory or abstract concepts, it's really a practical application. Um, I'd like to thank the sponsors for the event. Our sponsors have been BAM, Cosmos, NTI, AKM, John Paul's, Punch Consulting Engineers, and Evercam. Today's session, we're on event three, and we're talking about predictive analysis today. And this addresses one of the most persistent challenges in our industry, which is the difficulty of achieving reliable program certainty, cost control, and commercial performance on construction projects. So too often, issues are defined only when they're already materialized, when delays have occurred, when costs have escalated, and when recovery becomes difficult. So what we're talking about today is predictive analysis, which shifts that approach. And instead of reacting to problems, we anticipate delays, we forecast cost variations, and we identify commercial risks. So we have two speakers today. We have Craig Cooper and we have Stephanie. And we'll start with Craig. We'll go through our two presentations and then we'll take questions at the end. So the first speaker is Craig Cooper. He's an associate director with Cosmos and he's a chartered quantity surveyor with over 20 years experience working across international projects. He specializes in digital quantity surveying, 5D cost modeling, and embodied carbon management, with a strong focus on how data can be used to improve project outcomes. Craig works at the forefront of integrating programming, cost, carbon data, which helps organizations move from traditional reporting towards predictive, data-driven commercial control. He brings a highly practical, delivery-focused perspective on how predictive analytics is already applied to projects. So Craig, you're very welcome and I'll hand over to you.
Thanks for having me. I'm a chartered quantity surveyor, 2 decades, over 2 decades in industry, and I'm constantly learning, like all the time, every single day. So I don't when I come across as I know it all. I have good experience, but I think I have sort of an enthusiasm, I guess, to always be curious to try and make something better and to find out new things. But today I'm going to talk to you about commercial intelligence um, and how what it actually is, how we can implement it. The construction industry is it's a great industry to be involved in, but it's not the most efficient. There's various stats and things that show it's actually top 10 industries in the world, but the second most inefficient behind farming and agriculture. But I hope to, over the next 20 minutes anyway, to give you a very grounded and practical picture of what predictive analytics means from a construction and commercial context, what it takes to make it work, and where the real risks lie if you get it wrong. I'm going to be speaking from a post-contract perspective, but there are many lessons I think in that sort of pre-contract, pre-construction that can be taken away. And I try to cover both sides of the fence. So those working with directly for clients and for those working with contractors. But I work for Cosmos. We have three offices: Denmark, Ireland, and the United Kingdom, and we work with global clients all over the world. The agenda for my session today is sort of comprised of of 7 segments really. So we'll start with the problem, why most teams, or why the way most teams control cost today leaves them exposed. Then we'll define what predictive analytics means. From there, we'll look at inputs, the data that matters, and honestly, the data that most teams don't yet have in good shape. Um, the um, even though it seems logical and common sense to have it. Then models and forecasts and what useful scenario testing looks like in practice. And I say this from someone that's in the seat, um, working directly with clients. And at Cosmos, we take great pride in getting our clients to ask us at any given point of the day, of the week, of the month, of where their project is sitting commercially. And it's pretty much real time for us now, and the things that we implement. So we'll start then with the problem with backward looking controls. Um, if we look at um, if we look at through a QS lens here, as I'm chartered QS, I've thought for many years actually the traditional model is quite reactive and linear rather than proactive and circular. As you can see, there are teams working in silos, so the design gets developed, gets handed to the commercial team, might be over budget, rewind, revisit, more design hours to bring it back into budget, and that happens at every stage. Whereas the more sort of proactive approach is to actually have the commercial teams sitting in with the design teams to have that constant feedback loop of data day in, day out, hour by hour sometimes. If you're sitting in long design meetings, what's the impact of this? What's the outturn of that? We've all been in those situations. So I think the role of the QS certainly is evolving. And I think the predictive analytics piece and how AI supplements that, I think it's going to be a great help for us all improving the future of surveying. Traditional approach here, as I spoke about. So we've got kind of two pieces: the traditional and the predictive, each with kind of 5 or 6 lines on each side. There's many more to this, of course. I've just tried to summarize it, but the traditional approach, cost reports reflect completed work, not necessarily the emerging trends. Valuations are issued monthly. They try to be forecast, for the next period of work, etc., but it's not completely accurate. Variations can be captured after the fact, and cash flow forecasts based on program assumptions and not actuals. And to be honest, the amount of risk management meetings, I guess, that we sit in, we can see that many risks are flagged when they become apparent, when they become crystallized. The predictive approach, as I tried to explain, is a more constant feedback loop of data. So we've got um, live progress data feeding in. We've got live cost data feeding in. We've got a change control process that is being implemented from top to bottom. Every stakeholder knows that they are responsible for their change. Cash flow projection is refreshed from real procurement signals, and risk is surfaced while there is still time to act and change direction of the ship. So let's be precise about what predictive analytics actually means. I feel there are four levels to the analytics maturity, and it helps to know where you are on that spectrum for deciding where you want to go. So number one, or level one, is descriptive. What happened? This is your typical standard QS outputs: cost reports, valuations, final accounts. They're all essential, but they're all kind of essentially backwards looking as well. Level two is diagnostic. Why did it happen? This is where things genuinely get useful. Forecasting delay risk, projecting cost to complete, modeling cash flow outturn before problems materialize. Level two is diagnostic, variance analysis, trend investigation, understanding the root cause are all better, but they're still very reactive. Level three is predictive, so forecasting, cost to complete, knowing about it before it happens. And level four is prescriptive. What should we do about it? Scenario modeling, recommended actions, optimized submissions. Most commercial teams in constructions operate between levels one and two, descriptive and diagnostic. They're very good at explaining what went wrong after the event. The opportunity, though, and the value to clients is in levels three and four. The good news is you don't have to make the leap from one to four. It's a progressive journey. This section, section three, describes the inputs that actually matter. Before you can forecast anything reliably, you need to understand what data actually drives a useful model. I think there are four. There are four broad categories of input that matter from a construction commercial context: program and progress data, so percentage complete, earn value, look ahead. This is the backbone of any cost to complete model. Productivity and labor data, output rates against benchmarks, constraint logs, gang sizes, and shift patterns. Um, Commercial pipeline data, uncommitted cost exposure, change control register, procurement status, and pricing. This is where your cash flow projection either gets very credible or stays very theoretical. And then we have external signals. So material price indices, weather and site conditions, contractor solvency flags. These, I guess, are the drivers that sit outside of your direct control, but absolutely affect your outturn. Not all of these are equal in value, and not all of them are readily available. The key point is that inputs must be timely, consistent, and traceable. Data that arrives 2 weeks late, 4 weeks late, 6 weeks late, or is entered inconsistently by different people or cannot be traced back to a source, that data will corrupt your model rather than improve it, and you will always be a day late and a dollar short. So data readiness then. I just spend a little bit of time on this because it reflects, I think, the reality on most projects. Program data, it usually exists, but is often not being updated regularly enough to be useful as a live forecasting input. Progress percentage, sometimes captured, but frequently subjective. Two people walking the same project can have a different view of what's been completed. Cost commitments, this is actually where most teams are the strongest. The data quality here tends to be very good, and change control registers, inconsistent change control process is sometimes missing altogether. Labor outputs are rarely captured systematically, and procurement signals sometimes available, but often sitting with one person in the commercial team rather than in a structured, accessible format. And then finally, external indices available and are generally very good quality, such as BCIS or Cosmos 5D. This information exists. It is reliable, but the issue is that teams don't actively integrate it for one reason or another. And the reason I'm showing this is not to be discouraging, it's to make the point that improving data quality is the highest leverage investment you can make before you deploy any predictive model. A sophisticated model fed poor data is worse than a simple model fed good data. Garbage in, garbage out. And in commercial terms, garbage out means a forecast you cannot defend. So assuming you have all the data in reasonable shape, what kinds of models are actually useful in practice? There are 6 model types shown on screen that add genuine practical value from a construction commercial context, and I'll just go through them briefly. So cost to complete forecasting, blended committed costs, productivity rates, earn value, project outturn costs. This is all updated from live data rather than static assumptions. And the keyword or keywords there are live data. Number two is delay risk modeling. Typically uses Monte Carlo or regression models applied to certain data sets. Um, this These kind of give a forecast completion probability rather than a forecast completion date. Cash flow projection, refresh from real procurement commitments and progress actuals rather than from, say, a theoretical S curve. This is particularly important for identifying negative cash flow before it becomes a crisis. Change control pipeline. Actually implementing a change control process is the first thing you should do on every project. And secondly, making sure that all stakeholders are responsible for their ideas and changes. This will help flag very early on any exposure to the project. I'm sure we've all been in situations with some rogue changes that no one knows anything about appearing in the design. Contractor risk scoring. So this combines financial signals, performance data, procurement status to flag supply chain risk before it escalates into a program or cost events. And finally, scenario and sensitivity testing. The ability to model what if questions. Be curious about it. What if the electrical contractor is 3 weeks late? What if steel prices rise by 8%? Um, this is where the true value of these models actually lies. For the project managers in the room, I think delay risk and scenario modeling are probably your most immediately valuable tools. For the commercial teams, cost to complete, cash flow projection, and change pipeline is where you're going to get the most traction. So just we'll look at this very, very quick example here on the screen. So this is a simplified illustration of what a cost to complete model looks like in practice. So the grey line is the original budget, 14.8 million contract. The gold line is the actual spend through the first 5 months. The red line is the model's forecast from 5 months onward, from month 5 onwards, I should say. But look at what happens straight away in month 2, and then in month 3, and then in month 4. The actual spend is tracking slightly ahead of budget. Nothing alarming on its own, but those early indications are what you are looking for. Finding out what that earlier exposure is gives you more time to navigate the ship, to make decisions, to bring it back in. At the end of the day, when we finish projects, we don't like nasty surprises, but working in construction, we always come across those nasty surprises, and having these forecasting models like this really avoids that type of situation. Dashboards to decision support. So I want to talk to you a little bit about this because dashboards and decision support are not necessarily the same thing. Here is a maturity journey mapped across 4 stages. So stage 1 is about data foundation. This is where every organization needs to start: consistent data capture, named data owners, single source of truth for cost and program information. Without this, everything else is unstable. Stage 2 is the reporting dashboard: live cost dashboards, automated valuations, program integration. This is genuinely useful and achievable with with tools most teams and companies already have. But a dashboard tells you what is happening, doesn't necessarily tell you what is going to happen. Stage 3 is the forecasting engine. This is where cost to complete models, cash flow projections, and delay risk indicators come in. This requires better data discipline and some investment in methodology, but it is achievable progressively. Stage 4 is decision support: scenario modeling, scriptive alerts, AI assisted submissions. This is the target state, and for most organizations, it can be a long journey from where they are today. For the project managers, I think focusing on stages 2 and 3, program integration and delay risk indicators, will transform your visibility. For commercial teams, stage 3, forecasting, is where the real value is. cost to complete, cash flow, and change pipeline. Commercial directors, stage five, commercial directors, senior stakeholders, stage four gives you a board level visibility and the ability to have genuine different conversations. But the most important line on this slide, or the most important section on this slide, is stage one. You cannot forecast reliability from inconsistent data. The temptation is to always jump to the sophisticated output, but the discipline is to build the foundation first. And I'd just like to address AI. Certainly as a QS, it does create, I think, an understandable anxiety for most of us. Um, on the screen are two boxes. On the left is where AI and automation genuinely add value. These are real and proven capabilities. So processing large data sets faster than manual review, spotting patterns, generating draft cash flow scenarios, flagging anomalies, structuring and formatting report submissions. On the right is where human judgment stays absolutely central. So interpreting, negotiating, validating, and accountability. AI, I think, augments the commercial professional. It doesn't replace professional judgment, contractual expertise, or accountability. The QS, or the person that understands how to use these tools, will be more effective and more valuable than the QS who doesn't. But the QS is not being replaced by the model. Governance. This is not a dry compliance topic. I think it's a thing that determines whether predictive analytics builds trust or actually destroys it. There are five principles which I think are non-negotiable if you want to use predictive analytics responsibly in a commercial context. First is explainability. Every forecast must be traceable back to its inputs. If someone asks you why the model is projecting, say, a 1.4 million overrun, you must be able to walk them through the reasoning. If you cannot explain it, you cannot defend it. Secondly, the validation loop. Predictions must be compared to actual outcomes. Models drift over time. A monthly calibration review should be built into your standard commercial controls. Thirdly is audit trail. Assumptions, inputs, model versions, and sign-offs must be recorded in timestamps. This is especially important in NEC environments where you have like early warning notices and compensation events, etc. Fourth, accountability. A named professional must own and sign off every forecast. AI can generate the numbers, but a qualified, accountable person must stand behind them. This isn't bureaucracy. It's how you maintain professional integrity and legal defensibility. And fifth, avoiding over-reliance. Models should inform, not replace judgment. You and your team must maintain the ability to challenge the model output and crucially, to recognize when the conditions have moved outside the assumptions the model was originally built upon. So how do you actually start? I'll try and give you something concrete that we can work through. Three horizons: immediate, near term, and developing. So this month, three things: audit your data, physically go and find out where your cost, program, and progress data actually lives, where it lives, who owns it, and how current it actually is. You might be surprised by what you find. Secondly is map your change control process and identify where it breaks down. That is usually the biggest single gap in commercial visibility. Thirdly, identify one metric from a recent project you wish you'd known about sooner. That metric is your starting point. In the next 3 months, implement a single live dashboard for cost and program. Does not have to be perfect or comprehensive. One dashboard kept current. Have a conversation with your client about what forecasting outputs they actually want to see from you. The answer from them might change what you prioritize. Over a period of 6 to 12 months, build or adopt a cost to complete model with explainable inputs. Run your first scenario test on an active project. Pick one where you have reasonable data quality and established governance, a named model owner, and a validation cycle. These things do not happen by default. They have to be decided. The through line across all three horizons is the same. Don't wait until you have perfect data or perfect tools. Start with what you have, build discipline progressively, and let the capability mature. And then finally, six takeaways that I wanna give you from this small presentation. Um, predictive analytics, it's not magic. It requires good data, clear process, and human accountability. The technology is secondary to the discipline. Start with data quality first. The foundation matters more than the sophistication of the tool. Dashboards are not enough. They tell you what is happening. Build towards forecasting and scenario capability. That is where the real commercial value is. AI augments the team. It does not replace professional judgment, and it should not be allowed to. And governance, explainability, and audit trails are non-negotiable. They are what turn a model from a liability into an asset. And finally, progressive maturity. This is the goal, not a big bang transformation. Every organization starts somewhere. What matters is that you start, you build consistently, and then you maintain accountability throughout. Thanks very much, guys. That's my presentation to you today on predictive cost control and commercial intelligence.
That's great, Craig. Thank you very much. We're going to move on now to Stephanie Prenderville. Delighted that Stephanie could join us. She brings a complementary perspective where she's going to focus on the organizational and the leadership side of the topic. She's a former global chief people officer and is now a growth advisor with over 25 years experience helping organizations of all scale transform. Her work focuses on aligning people, culture, strategy and technology, including AI and digital enablement, to deliver sustainable business performance. So Stephanie has led large-scale transformation projects across multiple industries and brings deep insight into how organizations can successfully adopt new technologies. Stephanie, you're very welcome, and over to you.
Thanks very much, Kevin. I'll echo Craig's thoughts from earlier. It's just it's so nice to hear somebody read out all of your what it is that you do. It makes it sound so so professional. So thank you very much, Kevin. Hope I can live up to the introduction. So thanks, guys, for spending your lunch hour with us today. As you would have heard Craig and Kevin talking, I'm going to focus more on the leadership side. So really coming up into the organizational level and mirroring a lot of what it is that Craig has been talking about, particularly around the change aspects. So moving from change within a project to change within the organization. And if I just slice out a little bit of what Kevin's mentioned in my background and why I'm particularly interested in working in the built world and my ongoing partnership with CitA. When I founded SP Consulting, leaving my comfortable world of being a chief people officer and a people leader, one of the things throughout my career that has always been consistent for the past 25 plus years is leading change and transformation. So much more so than the operational aspects of the people side of the business, it's been the change and transformation side. And what drew me to AI 3+ years ago, 3.5 years ago now, when I started my business, was very much how AI was going to impact businesses at the organization level and at the readiness level around change. Recognizing, having taken organizations through digital transformation and loads of technological change, it always comes down to the pace of human change adoption. And I knew that was something that I really wanted to get stuck into and to really take my expertise that I built over the past 25+ years on developing expertise within organizations on the new world of work. And where I spend most of my time these days is helping organizations and leaders reimagine what work looks like in our new human and machine context. So you'll see that theme kind of um, uh, pretty consistent throughout my conversation with you today, and kind of dovetailing with what it is that Craig has already set out for us from a predictive analytics perspective. So that's why I'm so excited and passionate about this topic. And where I thought it might be helpful to transition from that kind of focus around change from a project perspective and what the predictive analytics can bring, and what the new access to having live data flows and moving from the reactive to the more predictive, what's stopping us from actually taking the step to optimize where the technology has gone? You know, Craig has so articulately laid out what is the art of the possible that's in place. What are Cosmos doing on a day-to-day basis with their clients, and how is it benefiting both their employees, their QS internally, as well as their customers? Well, the gap is around readiness. It's amazing to me, having led change and transformation for such a long time. It's never been about the technology. It's always been about the human capacity to take on board change. And I've been speaking about AI and AI adoption now for three and a half years. I've been one of the first people in Ireland to do that on the people side of change. And I've had a very consistent message all the way through. Start now, start small, learn as you go. And you'll hear a lot, if you pay a lot of attention to what's happening at the macro level with an AI adoption across industries, across the world. Organizations that were in the frontier space and rolled out AI tools to their business without explaining what AI is, without connecting what AI means to you in your role, or building AI literacy in place, are the organizations that are now rolling back on giving employees access to AI tools because they haven't put those fundamental foundations in place. So this readiness gap that I projected over 2020 to 2030 between readiness and where the technology is really spans everything from a societal perspective, an educational perspective, an organizational perspective. So if I just use this one generic gap and just delve into it from the organizational perspective, you'd see in the most recent Stanford AI Index, McKinsey report for 2026, Deloitte, IBM, Gartner Hype, everybody is saying the same thing. The gap is getting bigger and bigger between our readiness and our adoption of AI and where the technology is actually going. And what I've done is, in my capture here, is I've crossed out this being just a leadership readiness, because it goes beyond leadership, but yet leadership is the anchor within the organization to help to tackle where our gaps are. And I just want to make this as practical and tangible for you as I can as I set the scene here. What is AI is one of the most fundamental questions that might sound very dated, but in fact, with all of my customers that I am leading AI adoption programs with, it all strips back to, well, do you really understand as an employee, as a leader, what is a large language model? What does it allow you to do? What is a retrieval augmentation system? What does that allow you to do? What does a vector database allow you to do in terms of how your data is structured? So we need to get to a level of AI literacy across the organization where we understand the fundamentals of what AI can do in the same way that we had to learn what the internet could do. how we had to learn any new technology, really breaking that down and spending the time to do that and not delegating that to HR or IT or learning and development, but everybody in the organization understand that aspect is absolutely critical. And then connecting what that is to what's relevant to individuals. It's that relevance to individuals in their role that's hugely driving the gap. That'll help to shift people from a fear based on lack of information, lack of relevance, to tap into their curiosity. How can I use this in my role? How, as a quantity surveyor, can I shift from the reactive to the proactive? So connecting those dots and doing that as a leader is absolutely critical in being able to get this right. And then leaders have to have an even higher level of AI literacy. You need to, one of the things that organizations that I help organizations that is helping them to build their literacy, if I rephrase this, is I look at AI literacy underneath two lenses. One is personal effectiveness. AI can support me in my day job in the way that I currently do my role with no other changes into my job, just by using Copilot and other existing tools that I have that are AI enabled. Organization capability, such as the predictive analytics and the explainability and the transparency and the traceability and the audit trails that Craig has articulated, those are bigger organization capability aspects of what AI can do. Leaders need to understand the difference between the lower risk personal effectiveness of AI capabilities and the higher risk, higher investment organization capability. So as a foundation of leaders' AI literacy, you need to understand some of those basics. And that literacy gap has really led to that organization readiness versus where the technology is going. The technology is screaming ahead. Where our readiness is comes down to these gaps. And then the last one that I'll mention here is the technical foundations. And Craig alluded to this, particularly around the data side of things. So having your data and having your technology in, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you have to know, in taking one bite of the apple, if you're going to go after something like predictive analytics, what data do you need in order for those analytics to work? Where does it sit? As Craig said, you might be surprised when you start to chase what data do you have and where does it sit? It's going to be spread all over the place. So to get your tech foundations and your data foundations in place, if you try to invest at the organization capability side, but you don't have those foundations understood, or you're not on a roadmap to repair those, then you're going to be spending money where you don't actually have the right infrastructure in place. So those are just key aspects to set the scene on where a leader can take a role at the organizational level. And I don't have a huge amount of slides here. It's really just to get you thinking from a leadership perspective, because I do year-long projects. I do 6-month projects. I do leadership series. So this is really just to whet your appetite on what the role of a leader looks like in today's new world of work. When you see the art of the possible, when you see something as sexy as what Craig has shown us, as what Cosmos is doing with predictive analytics, your inclination is the FOMO. Oh my gosh, we need to copy this. We need to get into that. That's going to make such a difference for us as the organization. What you need to really look at as well, just summarizing those gaps that I mentioned, you need to understand the conditions that allowed Cosmos's tool to work. And those conditions are made up of a number of different organizational states. So I've created, through my many years of change and transformation, a 3C model that I'll share with you. And if any of you follow me on LinkedIn, and I'll share my profile at the end. So The 3 C's help organizations to look at a very macro level beyond the tangibles we're so used to looking at, which are around technology and around data, and to look on some of the people sides of things and how that intersects, how we need to get ready for something as big as AI that cuts across all aspects of the organization and cannot be owned by just IT, by just HR, by just the leadership team. It has to be owned collectively across the organization. So before you can get into predictive analytics or any other AI-led stroke tech advancements, you really need to see how ready you are as an organization. And I always tell leaders to start with, do you have the capacity to change? Capacity is the number one most overlooked requirement, overlooked condition for change to actually take place in an organization. We tend to be very guilty as organizational leaders to know who our people are who are really good at change and leading change. And we go back to the well and ask the same people over and over again to take on board change leadership as a side job on the side of the desk, as opposed to creating the space for change to happen. And change takes so much more effort than we actually expect for it to. The second C is the capability. So the AI literacy sits very cleanly in this place. If you don't understand the basics on looking at AIs through the lens of how can this help me and the individuals in my organization in personal effectiveness versus organization capability, and do I understand that well enough as a leader, as a manager, to plan, lead, and execute AI change and understand the cost and investment and risk and cyber challenges that come with that, then you don't have the in-house capability that goes with making some of these big decisions. And you need to either build that capability, buy it, borrow it, bring it in, bought it. There's a number of different ways you can build those capabilities, but having enough understanding is absolutely fundamental. And where you're seeing the reverse trend of organizations pulling back on rolling out their AI licenses to people is because they recognize they haven't created the capacity or built the capabilities. And the third C is around culture. We all talk about culture eats strategy for breakfast. You need a culture that enables change. If you have a culture that fear of change, fear of AI, lack of understanding the relevance of where AI is going to fit into an individual's role, if you don't address that cultural gap, the other activities that you do try to go after are never going to get the same level of traction. And culture is one of those aspects that takes so much time when it comes to change leadership. So anybody who's familiar with any type of change will know how important the cultural aspect of this actually is. So I'm not trying to teach you too much around change management here, but I'm just trying to help you dissect why that readiness in your organization or in the organizations that you're benchmarking against could be challenged in adopting anything like predictive analytics or any other really sexy looking AI tools. It's getting these fundamentals right. If I give you my own roadmap on how you create readiness and how you turn readiness into practice, there's 5 different co-aligned activities that I help organizations to look at. So in addition to specific project management, building in certain capabilities, getting your data in a good shape, getting your technology in a good place, building your capabilities, I look at this through a number of different key steps that can happen in any order, but I tend to talk about them in this order. The first is to skill the reorganization to reskill. So it's not just building your capabilities, but it's recognizing in a new world of work, some of the most important attributes of any employee that we need to be building in is helping people to unlock their curiosity and their ability and interest to learn. You may not feel like you are a great technology expert. You may not feel like you're very comfortable with technology. You may feel that you don't have the expertise to understand AI, but you do. And it's building the confidence in your ability to learn as a fundamental aspect to then that reskilling that's given to you and connecting and making it relevant to you in your role that's so fundamental. So the role of HR, the role of leaders, and the role of IT, which are a strong partnership in the AI adoption space, is helping people in the organization to have the confidence to reskill and to have the skill base necessary to be able to use AI. So that's a fundamental starting point. The next one is around the ethical practices, or what I tend to call Goldilocks governance. The governance was one of the areas that Craig touched on in terms of, really needing to put some very practical steps into. If I just expand on the governance that he mentioned, I would also bring into it the ethical aspects in terms of making sure that it's transparent, that accuracy piece, just reinforcing what he's mentioned in that space on the validation and the audit trails and the traceability. So all of those ethical practices need to be brought into the governance space. And in order to not have governance be a sledgehammer trying to crack a nut as an organization's getting organized, I call it Goldilocks governance. So it's really stripping governance back to some very simple practices and just making sure people have the do's and don'ts, that they know what AI is, that you're following the AI Act, that you've given everybody training, that you know where your data is going, and that everybody understands their role in keeping data safe and using AI appropriately.
Sorry, Stephanie, we're just gone over time. If we could.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm just about finishing up here.
Thank you very much.
Psychological safety then is just going back to that cultural readiness piece, making sure that people feel like they have the skill to reskill, that they have the guidelines for governance, and giving them the safety to actually feel like they feel comfortable enough moving into the AI space, moving from fear into curiosity, that you have your business targets that you're trying to achieve, and that you have a dedicated AI team, not just a bolt on to the side of the desk aspect. And I just want to reinforce, going back to Craig's slide, this is where leaders can help guide where AI fits and where it doesn't. It's where that human judgment comes in. And I just wanted to leave this group with a couple of thoughts as we go into our Q&A. The future is now. It's no longer a question of if AI or when AI, it's now. But organizations are not ready. So where will you take your organization? Are your leaders ready? Can your culture support it? And what's stopping you from taking the first steps and moving forward with AI? So sorry if I ran over there just a little bit, Kevin. I get very passionate about this topic, as does Craig. Those are the questions that I'll leave us with.
That's great. Look, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thanks both to Craig and Stephanie. So I think what we heard today really reinforces a couple of key points. Firstly, predictive analysis is not just about better data or tools. It's really about better decisions. And then secondly, it's clear that real value only comes through integration. And but just as importantly, we heard that success isn't purely technical. There's a lot more than that. It depends on data quality and governance, organization readiness, and critically people. It's all about people, leadership, culture, and trust in the outputs. Couple of quick announcements just before I wrap up. And first of all, CitA SkillNet. Just to make everyone aware that there's 60% funding support available for construction upskilling courses. And if you have any interest, please have a chat with the CitA SkillsNet team to find out how you can access it. And then we have the SkillNet MMC Accelerate initiative, which is a partnership between SkillNet Ireland and CitA, and it supports the adoption and growth of modern methods of construction through a dedicated government-funded platform, offering training pathways, industry insights, research events, and supports. So again, if you have any queries or any interest in that area, please contact the CitA team. So I'd just like to thank Craig and Stephanie for their insights. What we've heard today is a very clear and concise message from two very complementary perspectives. So from Craig, we saw that practical reality on projects, and that too often we're still managing using backwards looking data, and predictive analytics give us the ability to see risk earlier and forecast the outcomes more accurately so that we can intervene and resolve the issue before they escalate. Stephanie then challenged us at a different level, highlighting the real barrier isn't technology, it's implementation readiness. And without the right culture, capability, leadership, these tools simply won't deliver value. So I'd like to thank our two speakers. I'd like to thank everyone who has participated in this session, and just remind people that the next event, event 4, is AI on site, and it's in relation to safety, quality, and real-time insights, which I know is going to be another very interesting topic on the 21st of May from 12 to 1 p.m. So thank you all very much.